looking at everything else, let's just kind of dive into the questions then. So let me kind of bring over this question list. So Devin, she had some questions. So does anyone have any tips? I apologize if I missed something in the classes, but I'm struggling to get through them or trying to get through them. Some days I feel like I struggle to even do the smallest thing. I know just like working out, it's something I just need to start doing. I'm going to make the sacrifice of simplifying my meals to make it easier and do repeats to make recording easier. I'm pretty sure plenty of women on here are just as busy as me. So any idea or thoughts? So this question was asking any tips on food tracking, because this is the big thing that she was struggling with in her post. So when it comes to food tracking, you kind of already answered your question as far as what tips I would give, which would be really simplifying your meals and repeating the same meals basically every day, with maybe one meal being different. So the most successful clients that I have, like one-on-one clients, are the ones where their breakfast and their lunch and any snack they have really is pretty much the same every single day, or looks very, very similar, but pretty much the same every day. So what I would do is I would pick a breakfast that's really easy for you to track, that's really convenient and really simple. Maybe like 4 different food items at the most, but maybe even 3. And then pick some kind of lunch that's very similar, that's really easy to track, doesn't require a lot of cooking or prep, that has maybe 3, maybe 4 ingredients or food items, and then that be your lunch. And then maybe pick some kind of snack that maybe has like 2 or 3 food items or ingredients. And those are the staple lunch, breakfast, and snack that you're going to stick to all week. And then the only meal that maybe you have some flexibility and change, based on like your family and what they might want to eat, is dinner. And if you follow that format, that will already make food tracking so much less daunting, because it will be very easy to just copy and paste what you're eating, for breakfast, lunch, and your snack, like all throughout the week. And then you get used to weighing and measuring things of, okay, I'm always weighing out, 200 grams of yogurt. Boom. Easy. I'm always weighing out this many grams of egg whites or whatever. Super easy. Or I always have like this protein shake and this banana. And it just becomes so routine, because the more you try to switch things up every day, like you're always thinking of a new breakfast, you're always thinking of a new lunch, you're always thinking of a new snack and all this, you get almost like this decision fatigue or this mental fatigue. And that's why a lot of people don't follow through with the food tracking process, is because they think it takes too much mental effort, too much mental thought to do. And it's because they're trying to change their meals up every time. They like wake up on Monday and have some kind of breakfast, and they wake up on Tuesday and they're like, okay, what am I going to have for breakfast again? Let me think. Do I want this? Do I want that? And then they wake up Wednesday and think the same thing. And they're always trying to make so many decisions around food. And that's exhausting, even if you like knew everything there is to know about nutrition and knew exactly how the calories and protein match. And even if you weren't even tracking your food, just deciding what to eat every morning, in my opinion, with how busy I am, like that even would be mentally exhausting. Even if I wasn't even tracking my food, just me waking up every morning, like wondering what I'm going to have for breakfast or wondering what I'm going to have for lunch. Like even that would just take up too much mental space in my brain. So I keep like my breakfast the exact same, my snack the exact same, my pre-workout snack, and then my post-workout snack, basically the same exact thing all week. And then the only meal I really change is dinner, and that's because my wife, she likes to just have more variety throughout the week. She doesn't like eating the same things every day, but I literally could, because it just saves me so much mental thought. So keep your meals super simple. Like think 4 food items or ingredients or less. And as you get more advanced with food tracking and get more experience with it, you can have more detailed recipes and things. But in the beginning, you want to keep things super simple. It's like if you were learning to ride a bike for the first time, you probably would just try to ride a bike on like a really flat surface. You wouldn't go into the mountains with a bunch of rocks and a bunch of hills and try to learn how to ride a bike then. And the same thing goes with food tracking. Like your meals don't always have to be crazy simple for the rest of your life, even though it does, in my opinion, make your life more simple by doing that and make your progress easier to achieve. But at least in the beginning, like when you still have your training wheels on and you're still learning how to get used to tracking and learning how to do it efficiently, keeping your meals really the same. And also too, something else that will make food tracking easier is the more pre-packaged food items you can buy that are or pre-portioned, I should say. So for example, if let's say um for breakfast, let's say your breakfast is typically like yogurt, a banana, and what I don't know, let's say yogurt, a banana, and blueberries, and then maybe like a rice cake or two. You can buy those like single serving cups of yogurt. And when you buy those, because they are already pre portioned, you don't necessarily have to weigh out the yogurt in those cups if you're going to eat just like two of them. Now, if you eat one and a half of them, you might want to weigh it out since you're not eating the full one of like the second one. But if you're going to eat like two of those yogurt cups, which are around 200 calories each, around 30 grams of protein, you can just scan it, barcode scan it, and log two of those cups and just be done with it. And that saves you a little bit of time, I guess. It really doesn't take that much time to measure out yogurt because you just like put the bowl on the scale, turn the scale on, and then it's already set at 0, and then you just scoop the yogurt in. But it does take a little bit more of like mental thought to do that. Whereas getting the single serve cups doesn't take mental thought. Or if let's say for lunch you're having a sandwich with turkey and cheese, and then you're having like pretzels on the side, instead of getting like a big bag of pretzels that you have to weigh out in a separate plastic bag of like, okay, I'm gonna have 28 grams of pretzels, you can buy like single serving bags of pretzels that you can just barcode scan, and then boom, you don't have to necessarily weigh those pretzels in that because it's already pre-portioned. So you can buy more pre-portioned stuff like that that will also make food tracking easier because you won't have to weigh as much too, and you won't have to, pull out the food scale as much. So that's another tip to make it super, super easy and more convenient too. So Macy, she had a question. I have trouble with cravings. I would love to know what everyone does to avoid them. And then I asked kind of what cravings specifically, just for more info. And she said, I love snacks, but I think once my day calms down in the evenings, after dinner, I always crave sweets. So basically, she's craving sweets in the evening. So there are a couple of ways to approach this. And I did a podcast episode in the past about cravings. So I would definitely recommend like typing in Joey Gas cravings on Apple Podcasts, and it probably will pop up. But you don't necessarily, like, there's one thought of, okay, how can I avoid these cravings? But there's also a thought of how can I just simply like set myself up to where I can actually satisfy them and it be okay. Like, for example, myself, I typically do crave something a little bit sweet after dinner. So I always just plan my day as I'm logging my food, as I'm planning my day in advance. I always make sure I have like a couple hundred calories left after dinner in case I do want like a little piece of chocolate or something, or I want like a small cookie or like 2 Oreos, or maybe I want a couple of chocolate rice cakes or something, or we have these like little ice cream sandwiches in the freezer, and sometimes I'll have one of those, and I think each one is like 150 calories. So one school of thought of this is like, don't necessarily try to avoid the cravings, but just set yourself up to be able to actually satisfy them, and then another school of thought is like, let me set myself up to satisfy them, but maybe I don't want to satisfy them with exactly what I want to eat, but something similar. So for example, if you are always craving something sweet like ice cream after dinner, but you're finding it really difficult to fit ice cream within your calorie and your protein ranges and goals, think of something similar that tastes like ice cream or similar enough to where it will satisfy that craving, but also it's maybe not as high in calories. Maybe it's a little bit higher in protein. So for example, for ice cream, it could be like, well, now with the technology with the Ninja Creamy, you could make your own high protein ice cream, which will help out a ton. But let's say you don't have a Ninja Creamy, you could replace that with some kind of yogurt with maybe rice cakes. That's one of my favorite like sweet treats is Oikos 000 vanilla Greek yogurt with a couple of chocolate rice cakes and just dipping the chocolate rice cakes in there. And that's like an alternative that's pretty similar to ice cream-ish with just how sweet it is, but it's a little bit more quote unquote calorie and protein friendly. So that's another school of thought is like, how do I set myself up to be able to satisfy the craving, but maybe do it with a little bit of an alternative that helps me hit my calories and protein a little bit easier? So that's another one. The third kind of school of thought is kind of your first thing that you kind of hinted towards, which is how do I avoid these cravings? I find when people do have a lot of cravings, it is because if it's something under our control, it's because they aren't eating enough in their other meals and they aren't creating balanced plates the way they should. So this kind of goes back to our September challenge of the balanced meal challenge and the balanced plates and everything. But we want each meal that we have each day, at least like let's say 3 to 4 times a day, maybe up to 3 to 5 if you have a lot of calories, but most people it's 3 to 4. We want to have 3 or 4 meals that have some kind of lean protein, that have some kind of fruit or vegetable, and then some kind of healthy carbohydrate. Like this is the formula we want each of our meals or snacks to really kind of look like. Now, it doesn't have to be grilled chicken, rice, and broccoli like this picture. It can be Greek yogurt with maybe a rice cake or two with a bunch of blueberries or whatever. That kind of satisfies those boxes too. But we want those 3 components. And where a lot of people go wrong and where, like when it comes to putting together meals or snacks, is they will just eat a snack or a meal that's just like one of these components. So they will have like a snack or a meal that's maybe just a protein shake or just grilled chicken, or a snack that's maybe just a bowl of cereal, or a meal that's like just some kind of carbohydrate, or maybe even some kind of snack like just an apple and nothing else with it. And those things, it's not that they're bad, it's just they don't fill us up as much when we're only having one thing. So you want to think about like these kind of divided into different macronutrients, like a protein is some kind of healthy carb, and then fruit or vegetable, it's not a macronutrient, but it's a component of our meals. And having at least 2 of those components is like a bare minimum. But if you have 3, you're probably going to feel more full. So if you're feeling really hungry for like these types of things after dinner, first check, am I having all 3 of these components with my dinner? And then also check how many calories is my dinner. If your calorie intake for dinner is like something super low, like 200 or 300, then yeah, you're probably going to crave something after because it's just not a lot of food. So make sure your meals are like good sized meals too. And that will help as well, because also this idea, this myth that you need to eat like super frequently throughout the day, small meals kind of speed up your metabolism, it's just not true. And a lot of people, especially women, I find they like graze a lot throughout the day. Like they'll eat a couple things here and there, and they never actually eat full meals to feel full. And it's that like constant grazing that actually makes you like never feel satisfied after a meal, which then leads to you always kind of like feeling like you have this lingering hunger going on. And that also causes a lot of these cravings too. So 3 tips to summarize. 1, set yourself up to be able to just satisfy the craving with whatever you want. And obviously do it like in moderation. Like if you're going to crave 700 calories of cookies, like we don't want to save 700 calories of cookies and have, that much at the end of the day. But, save like a couple hundred, and it's okay to have like 1 or 2 cookies to end the night, like those, smaller Oreos. So do that, or save some extra calories, but have a healthier alternative that tastes similar, like the yogurt. And then the third is just make sure you're having like actual solid meals, and you're having them like 3 times a day with those 3 components, and that will probably help your cravings. So question here, any drink alternatives, because she loves flavor and struggles with plain water. I also love Diet Pepsi, maybe ways to cut down on my sugar in my coffee, love my sweets and creamer. So when it comes to coffee, use some kind of like sugar-free sweetener. I use the yellow one, I think it's Splenda, in my coffee every morning. I have 3 packets that I put in my coffee, and I don't put any creamer in my coffee, but I use that to make it sweeter. What is the other one? Sweet and Low, Splenda, those are a couple of ones. But use those. Like they're 0 calorie, and there's this big idea that those are bad for us and the research just doesn't point to that. Like they're perfectly fine to have, especially like if you're not having crazy amounts. Like you would have to have so much artificial sweetener to even come close to what is shown to even have a slight negative impact in rats, not even in humans, but in rats. Like, I think the equivalent is something like you would have to have like 60 Diet Cokes a day. 60, not 16, 60, something crazy like that to like even hit that threshold that's been shown to be negative in rats. So like use those alternatives. Use, like I said, Splendor or Sweet and Low. And then when it comes to drinks, like Diet Pepsi's fine. If you have like even a Diet Pepsi a day is perfectly fine to have. And then other things, I know somebody mentioned in the comments, Mio is another option. It's like a little 0-calorie squirt thing that you squirt into water. Like that's fine. I know there's like super low calorie Crystal Light packets you can put in water, and that's totally fine too. I've had a lot of people, a lot of clients even ask me, hey, like, does it count towards my water intake if I add some kind of Crystal Light pack? And I'm like, yes, it's still water you're drinking. You're just flavoring it with a little bit of like sugar-free or low sugar like flavoring, but it's still water. Like it doesn't cancel out the water just because you're adding that to it. Like you're still getting hydrated from it. So those are definitely fine to use too. Now I would like keep it moderate. Like if you're drinking a gallon of water a day and the full gallon is just like you're just throwing in packets and packets and packets of Crystal Light over and over and over, I'd probably tell you, hey, let's like maybe tone it down a little bit. Maybe just have like one of those packets a day or something. But those are perfectly fine to add to your water. And it's perfectly fine to have a Diet Pepsi a day. It's perfectly fine to have some of those like artificial sweeteners with your coffee too, and that can really help to lower the calorie content of those. So let me know if that helps. And then Sarah, love this question format. Sarah, I think, was the first one who took the leap and followed this format where, like I kind of mentioned in this post with the questions, like some of the best questions you ask will be when you say the current situation, the desired situation, the problem, and the question. And also, too, just a little comment on these questions as I'm on it. Really be specific with this. Like when I ask kind of what can I help with, like this isn't really a question, recipe, more meal ideas. Like it's not really a question I can answer with these. Obviously, this is content I can add to the group, which is really helpful for me to know. Like I love you guys telling me things that you'd like to see, but it's not really a question. Same thing. Well, this was kind of a question, I guess, the Cravings one. So I'll give that. But this one here, just like more meal ideas. We want to be a little bit more specific with our questions. So I love, Sarah, that you took the initiative and did this question. So current situation for Sarah. She's currently on starting week 4 of the priming phase. She's noticed some downward movement on the scale, which is really exciting, I'm sure. And also, she mentioned that her shirts are fitting better. She doesn't have to stretch them out on her waist as much. So seeing some body composition changes with the priming phase, with likely increasing her calories in this priming phase. So anyone else watching who's scared about the priming phase, some really good feedback here. She's also been really consistent about her step goal. She crushed the July step challenge and completing her 3 lifting workouts each week. So awesome job, Sarah. So she just finished the 5 weeks, doing a good job tracking most days, especially Monday through Friday. So her desired situation, she's looking to start her fat loss phase next week. She's heading to Cancun October 7th, so about a month from now. Would love to see some results in the next few weeks before leaving. Her problem is she's never been in a fat loss phase before, so she's not 100% sure how it's going to go. She's planning to use the 5 lower days and the 2 higher days on maintenance. And if I've read everything correctly, I should be eating approximately 500 calories lower than my maintenance on those 5 low days. Any tips, her question, any tips or wisdom for heading into your fat loss phase next week? Anything specific I need to know? Remind me, do I still need to hit my protein goal every day, just less calories? And then she was kind of wondering if she should schedule her one-on-one call. So if you want to schedule your one-on-one call, you definitely can. Since Sarah, she hit level 5, she has a one-on-one call that she's unlocked. So just let me know, Sarah, if you want to schedule that, and we can definitely schedule that, next week if we want. But going to your questions. So words of wisdom for the fat loss phase next week. And let's start with the protein. Yes, your protein will stay the same. Once you reach that like maximum threshold for protein based on the videos in the classroom section for you, you don't want to ever deviate from that. Like, sure, you might have a day where you accidentally go over your protein or accidentally go under, but that should be the goal no matter what. No matter if you're in a fat loss phase or if you're in a maintenance phase or a building phase, that protein goal, once you reach that level, is where you'll eat to stay. Now, if you were to get like super advanced and prepare for a bodybuilding show, there are some reasons why we maybe want to eat like a little bit more protein, even than that, when we're in a fat loss phase. But that's only applicable if you're like super low body fat, like single digit. And, we're not going to get to that point. Like, that's like unhealthy levels of body fat. So protein will stay the same going through the whole fat loss phase and in maintenance and building and all that. So just some words of wisdom for this. What I would do, so yeah, I would decrease calories by about 500 to 600 maybe, depending on where your maintenance level is at. I just wouldn't go any lower really than 1300. So if like your maintenance level is 1800, I really wouldn't bring calories down by 600 to go down to 1200. I would really bring it down to like 1300 at the lowest. So it kind of depends on where your maintenance level is at, but roughly between 500 to 600 calories maybe on those low days. And then those 2 high days, those 2 maintenance days, I would have them maybe just a smidge under your actual maintenance. I'd have them like, let's say your maintenance is 2200 on average. I'd maybe have your maintenance days on average around 2100-ish, just a little bit lower. And some words of wisdom with this too is, and this is a strategy I've been using a lot with my one-on-one clients actually, are these 2 maintenance days. I would make one of them maybe optional if you feel like you really need it or not. I would at least have one for sure in there, because having one is really beneficial for managing hunger, keeping cravings at bay, also to give you a little bit more flexibility where you feel like you're not falling off your plan if you do have one day that's a little bit higher. So I would definitely have one. But that second one, I'd maybe be a little flexible with it. And if you're like in a really good groove and your hunger is really not that high, and you're hitting your calories, hitting your protein, you're like, oh, like I'm in a really good routine and this is feeling pretty good. I'd maybe do 6 low days and 1 high day, maybe, especially in your circumstance, because you're basically going to be in a fat loss phase for only 4-ish weeks, which is a pretty short period of time. Usually before we do any kind of like diet break from a vacation or something like that, we'd want to be in a fat loss phase for probably at least 6 weeks. So you have like a short fat loss phase ahead of you. So because it's going to be shorter, you can be a little quote unquote more aggressive to where maybe you just have 1 high day instead of 6 or instead of 2. So that's kind of like my one piece of advice is maybe think about having just 1 high day instead of 2. Not only just because, your window of time is shorter, but also, if you're in a really good groove, sometimes it helps to just like keep that momentum going an extra day. And then any other pieces of like advice or words of wisdom is just remember that the scale is not going to go down every single day, and the scale will come up, and sometimes the scale won't even move for a week or sometimes 2 weeks in a row. And that does not mean you're not losing body fat. I think the scale is one of the biggest things that throws people off from like when they're in a fat loss phase, is when they don't see it go down every single day and they're perfect for 5 days in a row and it still hasn't gone down and maybe it's even gone up and they're like, what the hell is going on? That's completely normal. It is completely normal to have periods where the scale stays the same, where it goes up and down, where it maybe goes backwards, and maybe where it's stuck for 2 or 3 weeks in a row. Like you might not even see any change in the scale in like 2 or 3 weeks, and that happens sometimes. And focus so much on you checking off the boxes on a day-to-day basis and focus less on the results of that, and the results will come. So those are just some piece of advice without like knowing specifically what you were looking for. So hopefully that was helpful and answered all your questions there. And then Janet, last question for this one. So her current situation, she's currently a one-on-one client, but she wanted to answer or ask her question in here, which is fine. Current situation, she's in a fat loss phase, been in the fat loss phase for 5 weeks. Scale is going down slowly, but pretty steadily. Definitely seeing some body composition changes. Everything else is good, getting stronger, feeling leaner, fitting better in clothes. Midsection's being a little bit stubborn, but we're getting there, Janet. So her desired situation is obviously fat loss, weight reduction, wanting to lose about 5 pounds. Question is, would my calorie range go down as I lose weight? Like when I reach my goal, basically what she's asking is, would her maintenance calories go down if she lost weight? So let's say if there was a person, you may be listening to this, if you're 180 pounds and you lose 10 pounds, go down to 170, will your maintenance level change? Yes, it will change, because a big part of how many calories we burn per day has to do with just our overall body size. Like if you are somebody who's 300 pounds, you might burn like 300 calories or 3,000 calories a day, even if you're completely sedentary and you don't move at all, other than just like maybe a few thousand steps each day. You might burn like 3,000 calories a day because your frame is just so big, and body fat does burn some calories just to kind of like replace itself and burn itself off and everything. And same thing with muscle and all this. So your body weight, body mass does dictate how many calories you burn. But there are ways to prevent this loss of like how many calories we burn. One is to just continually being active and maybe being slightly more active, right? Like if you burn 2,000 calories a day, but you lose 10 pounds, and now you burn 1,900 calories per day. Like you could maybe walk an extra 1,000 steps or 500 steps, and then maybe make up that difference, right? So that's one way. It's just be a little bit more active. Another way is if you build more muscle, the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn at rest. The more muscle you have, the more calories you burn during your workout. Because think about the very first day you started working out. Maybe you were able to squat 10 pounds. Now, let's say a year later, you're able to squat 100 pounds. You will burn more calories in the gym squatting 100 pounds versus squatting 10 pounds because it's more weight. Like you are moving a heavier weight that same distance. It's going to take more energy. With that, like getting stronger and building more muscle will help to keep your calorie burn elevated even if your body weight goes down, because you're going to be able to burn more energy in your workout. Also, the more you're able to push yourself in your workouts, the more calories your body will need to recover from those workouts. So like when I was a beginner in the gym and I was squatting, let's say 200 pounds or 100 pounds, my body might only like the next 24 hours to recover from that workout. Let's say it only burns an additional like 200 calories to kind of recover, like that muscle soreness, the muscle damage I might have, all of that. It might take an extra 200 calories in a 24-hour period to fully recover from that. But now that I'm lifting, let's say over 300 pounds on squats, and my workouts are just more strenuous on my body because I'm lifting more, the next 24 hours when I recover from that workout, it might take 300 calories to recover from it instead of 200. So not only do you burn more calories at rest with having more muscle mass, but you also burn more calories during your workout. And then you also will likely burn more calories recovering from that workout too. So you can counteract a lot of this slowing down of your maintenance calories or lowering of your maintenance calories as you lose weight by continuously pushing yourself in the gym and building muscle. This is why I'm so big on lifting weights, because the same kind of adaptation doesn't happen with cardio, but it does with lifting weights, because you're able to progressively overload and add more weight easier and get stronger easier. So doing that will help. And also it's important to kind of frame that it's typically not that huge of a difference unless you lose like a substantial amount of weight. So I don't know why this website that I used to use all the time doesn't work anymore. But let's look at some numbers so you can kind of see what this difference looks like. Let's go with this one. So let me put my stats in here just so you can see. So I'm about 203 pounds, 5'9". I like to say 5'10" because it makes me feel better about myself, but let's say 5'10". Oh, I'm not at 203 years old. I'm actually 31 years old. So 203 pounds. So let me calculate this. So let's say I exercise 4 to 5 times a week. These numbers are a little bit off for me. I actually burn a little bit more than this, but let's just say I burn 2734. Based on this equation, if I exercise 4 to 5 times a week, I'm going to burn 2734 calories. Now, let me say if I lose, let's do 20 pounds. Let's say quite a bit. Let's say if I lose 20 pounds. Now, instead of 2734, I'm burning roughly, according to this equation, obviously this is an equation, so it's not perfect, but I'm burning 2,600 calories per day. So it only goes down by like 130 in that scenario. Now, let's say I lose 10 pounds. Now, this is only going down by 80-ish calories maybe compared to when I was 203 pounds. So it's really not a huge difference. And even let's say 198. Now this is only like a 30 calorie difference. So if I lost 5 pounds, it'd only be like a 30 calorie difference per day. So it's not huge based on these equations. There are some aspects of your metabolism where this adaptation, this reduction might be a little bit more than what these equations show. And that might be a topic for a different video to get into the nitty gritty of the science with all this, and this has something to do with your like body weight set point that some people have. There's some kind of rough set point of body fat where your body feels like quote unquote safe, where it's like, okay, like we're not dealing with starvation, we're not dealing with some kind of famine, like we have enough food to survive and keep our energy levels. There's a certain level of body fat percentage where your body kind of sits really comfortably at. And let's say for me, using this example, let's say for me, and it's usually a range. It's not usually a specific number. So let's say if my range of body fat percentage, like my body fat set point range that my body is comfortable in, let's say it's between 197 and 207. There's like a 10-pound range, right? So my body feels pretty happy where it's at 203. And let's say if I go down to 198, my body's going to feel pretty happy too. And maybe I only see like a 30 calorie reduction in how many calories are burned. But then once I go down to 190, I'm outside of that happy body fat set point range for my body. And even though this equation shows my calorie burn only going down by, let's say, 90 calories, because I'm lower than that body fat set point range that my body feels comfortable in, it will kind of decrease my non-exercise activity, thermogenesis, my NEAT, that's kind of what it stands for. You've maybe heard of me talk about this before, but it will slow that down a little bit because it senses, hey, my body fat percentage is getting lower than what I'm comfortable at genetically. I'm going to slow down Joey's metabolism a little bit more than what the equation would predict based on my weight. So this is like an additional slowing of your metabolism that happens sometimes if you get below that body fat set point. So instead of burning 2648, my body might slow down my fidgeting. It might slow down my blinking even. It might slow down the inflection that I talk with. It might slow down my talking with my hands. It might slow down these things subconsciously and I don't even realize it, to where maybe I burn 2,500 calories a day instead of 2,648, which would be predicted. So there is a point where if you lose enough weight and get out of that happy body fat set point that your body feels comfortable in, there is a point where your maintenance calories might be lower than what is predicted by this equation based on your body weight. And that's different for each person. So it's hard to predict necessarily how extreme that will be. And it's also like, if you lose 5 pounds, you probably won't be out of that body fat set point range that your body feels comfortable in. But, if you're already at a low body fat percentage, then 5 pounds might push you out of there. So you lose a little bit of your maintenance calories just as your body gets smaller. And then you lose a little bit extra if you get small enough or lose enough body fat where you get outside of that comfortable body fat set point range for your body. And the ways to counteract this are the same depending on like what situation you're in, or regardless of what situation you're in. So the strategies to combat this are still to keep working on pushing yourself in the gym so you can build more muscle, so you can burn more calories in all those different ways that I mentioned. And then also increasing your activity slightly, like increasing your steps will allow you to maybe keep that maintenance calorie level a little bit higher so you don't have to necessarily bring your food down as much. So hopefully that made sense. So yeah, the reduction based on your body weight typically isn't that much, but the reduction if you get outside of that comfortable body fat set point range your body likes to sit in, then that reduction might be a little bit more than what these equations would say. So hopefully this was an informative, good Q&A there. Let me know if all of this makes sense as far as the format, as far as me posting the question post every Monday, and then you guys posting your questions Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in there, and then either Thursday or Friday, I'll film the video and post it for you guys to watch. So, I think that was it for this one, and I will see you guys in the next one.